Hi, everybody. This is Mitch. Thanks for joining me today for the Security News Update. Starting out, apparently Dell has a little bit of problem in their PCs. I'm guessing there's probably other folks too, but Dell is getting the news. There are some security flaws in Broadcom chips that they use as part of their secure enclave in PCs. The issue, obviously, is that if you can compromise the secure enclave, then you can compromise passwords and other biometrics, whatever else you're keeping in the enclave. So that's kind of problematic. In theory, we'll see, what happens there. But Dell has said that they're notifying users who are affected. Now, apparently, like 100 models and millions of computers, or tens of millions of computers. So I'm not sure exactly how they notified people. In a corporate environment, many people, the first thing they do when they get a Dell PC is they wipe all the crap off the PC and load their own corporate image. So if, they're counting on people running Dell Advisor, well, in the corporate environment, that's highly unlikely. So I don't know how they're notified you, but I would definitely check to see whether the PCs that you're using use these affected Broadcom chips. And, if you use other computers, other vendors, I would kind of watch to see whether you get notified from them. Also in the alerts department, Microsoft has come up with their Azure AI speech kind of version 2. And apparently it's pretty impressive. It only takes seconds worth of your voice to clone your voice and make something that sounds an awful lot like you. Now, is it enough like you to match your voice print? That's an interesting question, but it would not surprise me. They didn't say that. So, as I have said before, if you're using voice as an authentication mechanism, now would be a really good time to stop doing that. Microsoft says it's not a problem because hackers using their software have to agree to their usage policies, and I am sure that will stop all the North Koreans from doing bad stuff. So not to worry, we're protected. In the CMMC Q&A, there's a section, one of the controls, 3.1.20, that says you need to identify external connections. And I sort of thought of this as, connections to third-party computer systems. But it's really, kind of bigger than that. It could be, obviously, all of your cloud providers, your VPN connections, if you have to other organizations, wireless connections to the outside, if you have any of those, hopefully you don't. External mail services, something that's not in your GCC high, remote backup services, software update servers, all kinds of things, time synchronization servers. So all of that needs to be in common. Now, obviously, a lot of that is going to be inside the GCC high environment. So if you run it GCC high, a lot of that is covered, but still, you got to kind of think about that and make sure you got everything covered. In the important issues department, CISA is telling the states that we're going to give you a little something, and I do mean little, and in the grand scheme it's a lot, but it's really little. So they're doling out $100 million, but you've got about 5,000 jurisdictions, right? If you think of all the cities and counties and states and stuff, so that's about $20,000 per if everyone got funded, which obviously that's not going to happen. But, at that point they're saying, after that you're on your own with no more money. In addition to that, the grants come with strings attached. So a lot of the folks are not even going to go apply for this pot of money. Bottom line, though, is that after that money is gone, there is no more. And for those entities that have been counting on that, have been using that over the last 4 years to go fund or help fund their cybersecurity efforts, that is gone. In the legislative and legal activities area, here's an interesting one. The cops have complained about ghost guns since people figured out how to 3D print guns. And I think it's a legitimate concern. But it turns out the researchers have figured out that 3D printers, the printers themselves, have, um, I don't know what you want to call it. It's not rifling like in a bullet, but they have indicators. Oh, I guess they call them tool marks. They have indicators that are unique to that particular printer, that particular nozzle, that particular print platform. So, in theory, you could go off and compare that against, a newly made part on the same 3D printer, and you would see the same, uh, effectively defects, very, very minor defects in what got produced. Now, obviously, if somebody replaced the nozzle, replaced the platform, whatever, because they knew that that was happening, that the cops could figure it out, then that wouldn't work. But at least there's some interesting work going on in terms of trying to figure out how do we go identify ghost guns and tie it to the people who commit crimes with them. So it's interesting stuff. Under education, while AI code is getting better and is getting better, it's still far from secure. From hallucinating libraries to plain errors, the code is a good starting point, but just like any code, you should not assume just because it came from an AI that it is correct. And so you got to use the same techniques that you've used, either automated techniques, hopefully, or manual techniques, hopefully not. But you just got to assume that you got to look at it with a great degree of paranoia. In the breaches department, both fashion giant Chanel and jewelry giant Pandora, both of whom were hit in a Salesforce attack, and they're not alone by any stretch of the imagination. Cisco's also hit, and Google was hit. These guys are going after their Salesforce databases. In all cases, they're at least all the ones I know about, they're third parties who have been managing this, and that's who they go at. And they're socially engineering people. It's not bugs in Salesforce; it's bugs in the human beings, and it's really hard to patch the bugs that are in the human beings. So we're seeing that. And in the case of Chanel, they got names, emails, mailing addresses, phone numbers, stuff like that. And I think they got a similar kind of data in the Pandora attack, but no credit cards or anything like that in these attacks. But still, it's embarrassing to big organizations like that that they can get socially engineered so easily. The newest spy gadget is balloons. I don't mean the kind of balloons, party balloons. I mean the kind of balloons like China flew over the United States in 2023, and they have a lot of advantages and just some interesting stuff. Obviously, balloons are pretty cheap. You can let them hover over wherever it is you want them to hover. They fly at, say 50,000 feet instead of flying well, if it's geosynchronous satellite, it flies at 25,000 miles over the Earth. Interesting stuff. And it looks like, you can fly a lot of balloons. 50,000 feet, you're probably above the range where a gun could shoot it down. So you could take it down, but it would take some work. It would require an airplane, basically, fighter jet. Are attorneys obsolete? And, depending on which side of that conversation you're on, that may be a good thing or a bad thing. But one up and coming Supreme Court qualified attorney tested AI, including AI voice, against himself in a case that he pleaded in front of the Supreme Court. And at least according to him, the AI actually did better than he did in some cases, some particular arguments. So, he posed the same questions that the justices posed to him. And the AI came up with some pretty coherent arguments. So, what are attorneys going to do? The problem attorneys have is, normally they bill $1,000 an hour, whatever they bill. If they pay $200 a month for an AI, are they going to still bill it out at $1,000 an hour? That's got some ethical issues there, or are they just going to claim that a human attorney did it when in fact human attorney really didn't do it, other than asking the AI to do it for them? So that's a whole revenue stream challenge that law firms are going to have over the next couple of years. And the ones that use AI and use it ethically, they're going to be a lot cheaper than the firms that use old-fashioned methods. So yes, they don't bill as much, but they also don't need as many people. So interesting. And we're seeing that already, that the law firms are hiring fewer associates and fewer interns because a lot of that low-level work is being done by AI instead of being done by humans. And then I just decided that there's just so many. I just decided to collect one day all the attacks I saw in one day, and I collected about a dozen of them, and just stopped after that because it was kind of getting like, this is getting bad. But it's clear the attackers are winning. There's just so many attacks out there, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. And then in the news bites, AI vendor Perplexity got caught cheating. They were scraping websites that they were not supposed to scrape because they had bot prohibition. Remember, bot prohibition is a concept, right? It's a flag there that if the bot follows the rules, that it will follow that, but there's nothing to stop it from cheating. And Microsoft recall is also cheating. Even though you tell it not to capture certain stuff, it captures it anyway. Ukraine stole the specs on Russia's newest nuclear submarine, which is a real coup for Ukraine and probably a lot of its Ukraine's friends. An insurance carrier denied Citi's breach claim due to the lack of MFA, and they haven't released the details, so I'm not sure whether they said they had full MFA when they only had partial MFA. It's probably something along those lines, because apparently they did have some MFA, but they didn't have all the systems in it. And the lack of MFA was the way that the hackers were able to get in, so not good for the city. So that but knowledge is on the taxpayers. And the federal court system has decided that it's going to go off and tighten security, but of course, not until after the case management system was attacked, compromised, and data stolen. Who knows what the bad guys got? I'm sure we'll find out eventually, but um, not anytime soon, I'm sure. So that's what I have for today. If we can assist you with anything, of course, we're happy to do that. Until next time, stay safe, and thanks for listening.